I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 184. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Monday, December 23rd, and it's transfer portal pandemonium out there. It's sweeping the nation. It's sweeping up San Marcos. Players are going in the portal. Players are coming out of the portal. It's a lot happening with Texas State. I was kind of waiting for it to settle somewhat. You know, we're not quite to the end of the transfer portal window. I believe December 28th, I believe, is when it ends. When it closes, I should say, it reopens again at the end of the spring. So I was just kind of waiting to see who all is going to enter the portal. Obviously, you see the big names at first, and then more trickle in later, and then you start to get the commitments to come back the Bobcats way. So we've had a lot of that over the last couple weeks. So we've got a lot to clean up there. Luckily, the Bobcats have a nice cushion to deal with it in December until the bowl game on January 3rd, UNT First Responders Bowl. We'll have plenty to talk about with that one. This one, we're not going to talk much about that game. I'll do another episode later this week after Christmas where we'll talk more about UNT, what's happening with that, maybe get some guests in here, talk more about that bowl game leading up to it. But this one, we're going to talk personnel for the Bobcats. Who's coming in, who's leaving, what that means for 2025. What that means for who's going to play in the bowl game. Players who are in the transfer portal, they're not going to play in the bowl game. It's past the window for Texas State. So that's the unfortunate deal. Crazy times. They've got to figure out how to clean all that up. Lots to talk about, but before we get there, this episode is brought to you by First Lockhart National Bank. As the largest financial institution headquartered in Caldwell County, First Lockhart National Bank expanded to San Marcos in 2018 and opened a state-of-the-art branch on Hunter Road in 2020. For the past 6 years, FLNB has provided a wide range of financial services that have significantly improved the quality of life for the San Marcos community and beyond. Whether you need personal or business checking accounts, business loans, or home mortgages, they've got you covered. Plus, they offer innovative services like video banking, business banking, and top-of-the-line mobile banking app. FLNB is also a huge supporter of TexAid football, standing out as one of the largest investors in NIL deals for Bobcats players. We just heard G.J. Kinney talk about how important that is. NIL, First Lockhart National Bank, understands how important that is. Be sure to follow them on X at First Lockhart and on Instagram at First Lockhart. Shout out to my guy, Gil Hodges, Senior Vice President at FLNB in MLS number 2475765, a proud Texas State grad and a diehard fan. We are thrilled to be partnering with Gil and FLNB all season long. You can find them at 2507 Hunter Road. That's 2507 Hunter Road, or give them a call at 512-504-7422. Again, that's 512-504-7422. First Lockhart National Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions may vary. Hey, Bobcat Nation. Looking for your next real estate move? McNabb and Company Real Estate Services has been proudly Bobcat owned and operated for over 15 years. They're your go-to team for buying, selling, investing, and managing properties and everything else in between. Whether you're a fan or an alum, they've got the local expertise and full-service support you need. Call them today at 512-667-9129. Again, that's 512-667-9129. Or visit them at mcnabbandco.com. That's MCNABB, mcnabbandco.com. McNabb & Company, where Bobcats find their home. Give them a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and X at McNabb & Co. Thank you to Monica Katz, a day one Bobcat supporter. Now she's partnering with us this season. Check them out again, mcnabbandco.com, MCNABB, mcnabbandco.com. And one more at the top for our guys at Austin Patchmaster, austin.patchmaster.com. Drywall, sheetrock, plaster repair, cracked walls, cracked ceilings you need fixed, a painting job, dings and dents you need fixed, popcorn ceiling removal. Did you punch a hole in your wall after you found out Ishmati entered the transfer portal? Man, that was devastating. Well, they can fix it for you. Whether you're moving in, moving out, or just looking to upgrade, Austin Patchmaster has you covered for all your home repair needs. Owned and operated by a Tech State grad and a true Tech State sicko, Michael Clements, Austin Patchmaster, one of our first sponsors. They are back to finish out this season. Check them out at austin.patchmaster.com, and you can call them at 512-200-3888. Again, that's 512-200-3888. If you're in the Houston, Dallas areas, they can get you a referral, but if you're in Austin or San Marcos, they'll come right to your house and help you out. Again, austin.patchmaster.com, 512-200-3888. All right, thank you to our sponsors. Let's get to these Bobcats, though. Lots to talk about. We'll do bad news first. We'll talk about the players that are leaving, how many players total they are gone with the seniors. Total gone, total out. I have 16 players in the transfer portal for Texas State, along with 22 seniors from Senior Day. Now, the Senior Day ceremony was 21 from that Senior Day ceremony. It's 22, though, because Stephen Parker wasn't a part of the ceremony, but he has exhausted his eligibility. I think he's going for the NFL next season. I think he has a good shot too. Really good player. Didn't get to see a ton of him here because of the injury, but the little bit we got to see, he was really good. But that's 38 out for the Bobcats. It's 25 in as well. We'll get there. So hang in there with me while we talk about the 38 out. I won't go through all 38 because we've talked about the 22 before on the senior list, but here are the players that are in the portal for Texas State. I'll go through the list, and then I'll talk about some of the players on this list. Number 1, running back, Ish Madi. We've discussed it already. He has committed to Arizona. Number 2, edge rusher, Ben Bell. Number 3, right tackle, Alex Harkey. Number 4, corner, Josh Eaton. Harkey committed to Oregon. Josh Eaton committed to Michigan State. Ben Bell hasn't committed yet. Lots of P4 offers, though. Number 5, wide receiver, Cole Wilson. He's going to Baylor, taking the Ashton Hawkins route, transferring to Baylor, hooking up with Jake Spavital. Number 6, defensive lineman Dominic Ratcliffe. Little surprised me somewhat when he entered the portal, but he's off to Indiana. Good opportunity for him. Number 7, place kicker Brendan Frankie, also going to Indiana. Those 7 players there are ones that were looking, who got a bigger opportunity at a power conference school. Potentially a lot more NIL money. You would hope so. Some NIL money for these players. So it's a tough one, but nature of the beast. It's part of the success at this level is your players are going to get poached. Your offense coordinator is going to get poached, like Mac Leftwich, defensive coordinator last season with Jonathan Packey. Like this is bound to happen, and it's the Wild West right now. So I mean, every time the transfer portal opens, it's going to be crazy until there's some sort of reform. You know, we've said it here before, it is the Wild West with transferring and everything, but even the Wild West was tamed. So I imagine it will settle at some point. It'll take some time. It'll take some leadership. Where that leadership comes in is to be determined. But those 7 players, they're leaving. They're probably going to get some money, get more eyes on them, things like that. The other players left and going in the transfer portal, they're really looking for playing time. Some of these players potentially, some of them may have been pushed out. I can't say for sure. That tends to happen as well. It goes the other way where coaches are like, hey, you should enter the transfer portal because we're probably not going to play you a whole lot. Number 8 on the transfer portal list for the Texas State, quarterback RJ Martinez. We've talked about him. Quarterback PJ Hatter. We've talked about him. He visited Georgia State. I know he has a Lamar offer. I still have a real slim chance hopes that he comes back, maybe, because they could use another quarterback in that room, and who knows the opportunities that could come about for PJ Hatter. Maybe if they have discussions where he is given more opportunity or more of a shot. But who knows? They may have moved on from that altogether with the Nate Yarnell commitment that we'll talk about coming up. DB number 10, DB AJ Edwards. Alonzo Edwards played a whole lot for this team. Didn't play much this year with injury. It seems like he's out the door. Number 11, offensive lineman Hameto Abibo. Didn't play much this season after starting all of 2023, only gotten 4 games this year. His twin brother Mecca is still staying. He'll be here still though. Number 12, wide receiver Langston Anderson. He was the Oklahoma State transfer. Never really broke through the rotation though. Saw him sparingly the last 2 seasons. 13 linebacker Max Harris actually started for this defense quite a bit and played quite a bit, but it seems like they may be trying to do something different at that linebacker position. That was a position that did struggle somewhat to stop a running quarterback and things. So, but they've secured some other transfers from some linebackers. We'll talk about that. Number 14, offensive lineman David Connor. He was the Florida transfer. Only one season here, didn't break into the rotation. Seems like he's leaving to find playing time somewhere else. Number 15, DB Jakarian Lathan. He was honestly way under my radar. Came in from Old Dominion in August, I guess. Was at DB, but didn't see the field this season. He's out the door. And number 16, running back Jalen Jenkins. He came in. He had some fumbling issues, so we didn't see much of him for the rest of the season. So he's out the door as well. So those are the 16 players in the transfer portal for Texas State. It's not including any players who are walk-ons that have entered the transfer portal. They're kind of always in the transfer portal, really, if you're a walk-on. So these are scholarship players. But players in the portal: 3 offensive linemen, 3 defensive backs, 2 defensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 linebacker, and 1 kicker. So you add those to the 22 seniors that are out. That's 38 total that are out. These are the total position numbers of players that are out, seniors and transfer. Of the 38, you have 9 defensive backs. That's the biggest position by far. 9 defensive backs are out the door. I was pretty surprised by that number. 6 defensive linemen, 6 wide receivers, 5 offensive linemen, 3 quarterbacks, 3 linebackers, 3 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 kicker, and 1 deep snapper. Shout out to John Orlean. He's on his way out the door. He played a lot for the Bobcats. I can remember him getting a good tackle in the bowl game, the first responders game, and last season, the last version of it, part 1 of it, but he won't be in part 2, it seems. He will be in part 2 because he's a senior. Yeah, he'll be in part 2. Seniors will be coming back. The guys in the transfer portal, the 16 that we talked about, won't be, but seniors will be back. Sorry for the confusion there. But obviously from reading that out, the total outs, DB is a big position of need. Defensive line, receiver, offensive line, these are the big positions of need. The ones that aren't as needed, but pretty big as well, were quarterback, linebacker, running back. And these are all, they've addressed this. They've addressed this through the transfer portal. We've talked about the 18-man signing class from early signing day, 16 high school players, 2 JUCO players, those 2 JUCO players from Jones College, the offensive lineman Alan Grimmy and Cameron Schultz coming from Jones College. They've addressed a lot of these positions of need already. We won't go through all 18 of the players that they signed already. You can hear about that on the last episode we went through. I'll talk about some of them here sparingly, but this right now I want to talk about the players who have either committed or signed from the transfer portal. Most of them have signed, but all of these ones have at least committed and will probably sign soon. With transfers, there's a lot of issues. You gotta get all the paperwork right and everything. So and it can happen anytime with the transfer portal window being open. You can sign a player. Number 1, we talked about John Orlean. They need a deep snapper. They went and got one. Trey the Sniper Dubuque. Figure out how to say your name soon once you get here. He's coming in from South Florida, 2 seasons at South Florida, 2 seasons with the Bulls. His dad was a wide receiver at Texas Tech. You like to see that pedigree, that athletic pedigree from your deep snapper, a position you don't talk a lot about unless something goes wrong. So shout out to John Orlean. We didn't talk about him a ton unless it was him making the tackle. So he did his job at Texas State. But yeah, Trey Dubuque coming in for Texas State tops the list of the transfer portals coming in. I just wanted to start it out with a deep snapper. Number 2 though, QB Nate Yarnell from Pitt, 6'6" quarterback from Lake Travis in Austin, right down the road. 4 seasons with the Panthers. Never really got a great shot. Didn't play in 2021, 2 games in 22, 4 games in 23, and 9 games this last season. 1,846 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, and 6 picks. Played against Clemson just last month, just not too long ago. 350 yards and a touchdown against Clemson. They lost 24-20 in that game, but a really nice showing from Nate Yarnell. I can imagine this coaching staff saw that game, saw he was a local guy, and went, hey, I mean, that might be a good player to bring in here and see what he can do with the Bobcats. This was a player that I've actually, it was interesting going back like on Twitter X, going back in the DMs and seeing how far back. I was like, I know I've talked to this player before. I've even covered a game he was playing in, and he lit it up. Tall quarterback. He may have been like a junior at the time, and he didn't have very many offers. So I was like, is Texas State interested in you? Are they talking to you? I said, no, not yet. Not happening yet. And it was a full year after I reached out to him before he got that Texas State offer, and he seemed pretty excited about it. But then the other offers started rolling in pretty soon after that from Pitt. Obviously, that's the one he took, but it's interesting to see all this time later to come back around. It's almost like a Bo Corrales type situation, except Yarnell was never committed to Texas State like Bo Corrales was. So I'm excited to see him in San Marcos, a local player. He's got 2 seasons left. There might be a lot of opportunity here with not a very busy quarterback room, not a ton of players in there as of now. We'll see if they decide to add another one. If they, like I said earlier, if maybe they can get PJ Hatter to come back. They definitely want 4. We've heard DJ Kinney say that. And between Brad Jackson, Nate Yarnell, Gavin Parkhurst, and I know they have Lincoln Filial, the scout quarterback, but I imagine they want to get another one in there. But Nate Yarnell, I mean, I would put him as the front runner. I mean, we saw Brad Jackson get some playing time, and they think really high of him. GJ Kinney thinks the world of Brad Jackson, so I feel like it's going to take a lot to supplant him from Yarnell, but given his experience and everything, and it's going to be a great competition. I'm already so excited about it. I can remember talking about it with the Wizard, our great producer Zachary Webb, how excited we were about like, oh man, quarterback's in the portal. McLeod's a senior. He's graduating. He's playing in the bowl game, by the way. We said that in the last episode. It's going to be a pretty exciting spring with what's going to happen at quarterback. And I knew it, and there was a lot of Chicken Little going on with players entering the portal. I put out a tweet saying, like, we've seen these guys work the portal before. Just give it time. Give it time. They're not done. That's a pretty good quarterback that they went out and got to add into the mix. We'll see how it shakes out after the spring and everything, because we've seen them before come out of spring practice like, let's go get another quarterback. Let's go get a TJ Finley, after spring practice. So it's still not set in stone with anything, but this is a really good pickup for Texas State. And these quarterbacks, the price tag on them is outrageous with NIL and everything. So, and you heard GJ Kinney, most of you did, I'm sure, at the last press conference talk about the need for more NIL in order to compete recruiting wise with some of these teams. If this was a player that was maybe overlooked by some of these other bigger programs and the price tag wasn't as high, then that was a pretty good steal for Texas State. But yeah, they got that quarterback. They got a quarterback in there, a transfer quarterback to go in there with Brad Jackson. It'll be interesting this spring. But number 3 on this list, we're still talking about the 7 transfer portal players that are coming in. Number 3, running back Greg Burrell. That just happened. UNLV running back with the Rebels. He was a true freshman this year, 350 yards as a true freshman. Some good tape. Our great intern Reese Largent, he's been killing it on Twitter with recruiting updates. Put out some a great tape of him, some of his a touchdown run for him with the Rebels. So that'll be exciting. Bigger back, obviously replacing Ishmati is going to be tough. Terrific running back in Ishmati. But this is at least the start. He's a nice young player, bigger running back, which I really like. Like to see a guy over 200 pounds can really be a little bit of a battering ram. Number 4, we have edge Kennard Snyder at Iowa State. Really like this pickup for Texas State. This is a player that we know from the Sun Belt. He started his first 2 years, he was at ULM. The second year, 2023, I specifically remember when he was an honorable mention because that awesome Texas State ULM game, which the Bobcats won, Kennard Snyder was playing terrific. Defensive end position, 9 tackles. I can remember him having 9 tackles at the defensive end. He was wreaking some havoc. Few of them were behind the line of scrimmage. Great player. Went to Iowa State. Didn't get a ton of playing time. Decided to come back to the G5 level. 6 foot, 270 pounds, compact player, heavy player. Who knows? Maybe this is a guy they decide to move in the interior. He's a big guy, and they need some interior, and they have quite a few edge players as well. We'll talk more about that going forward. We're talking about personnel. But yeah, Kennard Snyder, a really good pickup for this defensive line. He's a starter. Number 5, Javis Manette, corner from Wofford. Sorry if I said your name wrong, Javis. They need a lot of depth. 9 DBs are heading out the door, so this is another one that they're able to bring in. Pretty good player at Wofford. Imagine to be able to compete for that starting spot at corner. You have like Tresmore, Krogan out there, Marion Atwood. So there's some opening at that corner spot. So he may be able to at least move into the rotation early on. The next two linebackers from P4 programs. It's kind of what I was talking about with Max Harris a little earlier. Seems like they may be going a different route at that linebacker spot. We have Chance Johnson from Texas A&M and Terrence Cooks II from TCU. Started his career at Texas, though, before transferring to TCU. Neither one played a whole lot at their respective colleges they're coming in from, but they're both still pretty young. A lot of potential, maybe stepping down from the P4 to the G5 level. It'll give them more of an opportunity to shine and get out there. But we'll talk more about these linebackers here in a sec. But they're looking pretty decent at linebacker post portal. So that's total in with those 7 at least committed. Most of them signed. I haven't seen a signed announcement for Nate Yarnell, but I have for I feel like all six of the other 7 on the list. That's 25 total with the 18 from early signing day. So by position, that's 5 defensive linemen they've added, 4 offensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 3 defensive backs, 3 receivers, 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end, 1 deep snapper, and a partridge in a pear tree, for Christmas week. There you go. I like to hear all those positions they're adding. Obviously, they're not done. I don't think they need to go 38 for 38, like they have 38 leaving between seniors and transfer portal entries. I don't think they need to go get 38 more, but you'd imagine they're at least going to get a handful more, maybe even 10 more. 5 to 10 more. I can imagine they're aiming for. We're seeing them bring in some offensive linemen from the transfer portal. They're bringing them in for visits. Defensive backs, they're bringing them in for visits. So they're not done adding players from that 25, but pretty good start, especially considering the portal is going to open again in April. There's another signing period in February. They have some other Kevon Carter, that high school player from Wagner High School in San Antonio at linebacker. They still have him committed. So these players that they haven't signed that are committed, they could still sign them in by that day. But a good start so far. And most of the damage from the portal, players leaving out, that the 16 players leaving, specifically that top 7 that we talked about, I don't think you're going to see players of that caliber entering the portal going forward so close to it. That's why I decided to go ahead and do an episode now. It's like, okay, we can feel like it's a time we can talk about it. They've gotten enough players in, enough players out. You can kind of see where the dust is settling. Let's talk about for 2025 with all of this. It's going to be a whole new starting defense pretty much. I mean, there's a handful of guys who Tresmore I mentioned earlier, Darius Jackson, Khalil Alexander, some of these guys who have either started or played significantly in this defense. But it's going to be a whole new look basically for this defense. They've added quite a bit of players that have left, but if there's one spot that seems like it still needs more additions, it's that interior defensive line. And I thought it actually would have been more edge with Ben Bell leaving, with Bryce Bass and Stephen Parker exhausting their eligibility. I thought it would have been more of that edge position that they would have needed to clean up. But they're actually pretty good at defensive end. Some of these players coming back, they have some really good guys, and we'll talk about them. But this interior D line, just Cameron Washington really coming back. You have Nathan Hirta as well. He played somewhat. So they not a whole. It's unclear right now who the replacements are going to be for Tavian Coleman, and Terry Webb. It's not clear who those guys are going to be at that interior D line. I don't know if they're getting Lange back. I know something happened with him that maybe if they can clear it up, he can come back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They also signed a big guy, Jarvis Bell, out of high school. So maybe they're looking at him at that interior D line. Maybe Snyder as well, who they just brought in, real heavy dude. So we'll see what they're going to do with that interior D line. If there's one position of concern on the defense, it's actually that interior D line more so than linebacker, edge, or DBs. I'm not as concerned after going through the personnel with some of those other positions. I think they're gonna be. I don't think it's going to be the exact. I won't say that they're going to replicate what they've done the last 2 years. It's on track for a slight regression as they develop some of these players, but I don't think it's going to be a complete. It's not going to be like a losing season for this team. I think they have some really good players from these first two recruiting classes that just didn't get out there. 120 players on this roster, 85 scholarship players. We were talking about that before. But yeah, lots of DNs as I was talking. Lots of DNs are out, but they have some exciting ones coming back. Khalil Alexander, mentioned him. Jolazin Landry. Tymir Jackson is a player that the coaches are really high on that we just haven't seen a ton of. It's just his first year. Jeremy Jackson, not related to Tymir, at least I don't think. Jeremy was a freshman last year. We didn't see a lot of him, but they're the guys who have gotten a lot of praise from the coaching staff. And they're also bringing in what was it? Some real good defensive ends. 4 defensive linemen coming in from the early signing day from earlier. So some of those young guys are going to get in there quite a bit at that defensive end spot. 4 P4 transfers at linebackers we were talking about. Seems like they may have upgraded there. To be determined. We'll see what it's going to look like. But going out and getting Cooks and Johnson from A&M and TCU, and still having Manny Nunnery, Traylon Payne at Houston and Florida transfer. They have some talent there. We'll see who's going to step up and who's going to solidify with this two-man linebacker spot. You've really gotta have that one shaped out. I mean, they're even bringing in Burkhalter from the recruiting class, the early recruiting class, a high school player that's coming in. Derek Morning, who's been here for a while at Texas State. So they have some good players at that linebacker spot still. I could even see Derek Morning starting over some of these transfers, these pre-4 transfers we've talked about. He's just been there for a while, if he stays, assuming he stays. Lots of DBs gone, but plenty that can still play. Trez Moore, I mentioned. Camden Grogan, who was the Lamar transfer, played real well last year. Marion Atwood. Those are some of your corner candidates. Then you have Wyatt, who's coming in that they've signed. They've signed some really good high school players as well. At safety, they still have Caleb Coleman. I'm surprised he's coming back. The West Virginia player didn't play a whole lot this season. I think it may have been injury. Well, we saw him a lot in 2023. Ryan Nolan, number 32 out there this past season. We'd see him get in the rotation quite a bit at safety. Darius Jackson, the Mizzou transfer, missed all of last year with an injury, played quite a bit this season. He's back at safety. Tice Williams was a true freshman at safety this year, a true freshman I'm really high on, so interested to see if he'll get to play some. So more needed, but not completely depleted as far as defensive back is concerned. They need more. With 9 leaving, you're going to need more than just 3 coming back, but maybe just like 2 to 3 more that I imagine they're eyeing in from the transfer portal. Because with this 5 DB defensive set, you need those DBs. You need numbers. So they need to go get some more of those guys. Big offensive youth movement coming up, specifically at receiver. Cole Wilson entering the transfer portal, Joey Hobart exhausting his eligibility, Jaden Williams just getting 1 year and then leaving after looking really great. That one's disappointing. It really just leaves Chris Don and Bo Sparks as receivers on this roster that have seen the field. They're likely going to be the number 1 and number 2 next year unless they go out and get someone in the transfer portal. But behind them, it's 6 freshmen behind them. Kylan Evans, Junior Thornton, and Jordan Martin. They were redshirt freshmen. Then you have true freshmen coming in: Skylar Lewis, Tucker Cusano, and Julius Spencer. I mean, that wide receiver room is very, very young, because even Don and Bo Sparks are both young guys, underclassmen themselves. So that's an interesting position that's to watch. Now, a lot of those young guys, they're adding height. that was missing from this wide receiver group last season. We've talked about the red zone numbers and everything, where that's going to matter to have these bigger targets. So like Kylan Evans is a real tall receiver. We would see him number 17 running around in warmups last season. They've got some real good height. Skylar Lewis, Tucker Cusano, and Julius Spencer all over 6 foot. I do remember that. At quarterback, you're looking at Nate Yarnell, Brad Jackson, and Gavin Parkhurst right now in that quarterback room. It's decent. It probably needs more, needs another one, whether it's PJ Hatter, whether it's someone else to add in there to get that 4. But it's at least shaping up after losing 3 guys, one with McLeod exhausting his eligibility, and then 2 others entering the transfer portal. Nate Yarnell, I really like this for an opportunity for him to see if he can get on the field and do what he did at Lake Travis. It'll be interesting. But Brad Jackson, I mean, I'm a big fan of him as well, and seeing what he can do, seeing if he can really polish that arm and do some good things this offseason for the young guys. So real excited to watch the spring competition at quarterback and to see what's going to happen if they're gonna add somebody or anything. But and even as much as I like Yarnell and as he's been on my radar for a while, I don't really look at him as they're bringing him in as the savior. He could potentially be like a placeholder while Brad Jackson develops, but if he takes advantage of that role, he could really do something special. And with the Bobcats, so I think that's a great opportunity for all parties involved. I know there were some bigger names when Chandler Morris entered the portal, UNT's quarterback, which is huge loss for them coming up in that bowl game. Real devastated for them. No Ishmati, so it goes both ways, I guess. But when he didn't end up coming to Texas State, even though his dad is on staff here, still no OC name, by the way. Sorry to kind of jump in and say that. They said they're going to call plays by committee coming up from the bowl game. I don't know how that's going to work. They're going to have little powwows before each play, and they're going to take a poll on which play to run. I don't know how that works. Someone has to pull the trigger and call plays. Imagine it'll be DJ Kinney if that's how he's saying it. But it's with his dad on staff here. A lot of people were assuming Chandler Morris, so he's going to come to Texas State. I was, at initial thought, yeah, maybe that seems like that would work out. But P4s were calling, and that's just the way it goes. So no, but even with that, with some of the bigger names in the transfer portal at that quarterback position, committing other places, this was a really solid pickup for Texas State. Offensive line, only left tackle Dorian Strawn and right guard Talik Lockett. Those starters are the only 2 coming back. Which is, I fully expect Sully Burns, step in. He's a Tulane transfer, didn't play a whole lot, but was rave reviews. You see him on the sideline and warm-ups pregame. He's a big guy. Imagine he'll step into that right tackle spot. Him or Trenton Scott will man some of those tackle positions. You got a lot of young guys. You got to remember that they've been recruiting. This is their 3rd recruiting class, and they've collected some offensive linemen throughout the first 2 that are younger players that they've been developing. Really Shoemaker, really great offensive line coach here for Texas State. And he's been developing these players: Bamy Badusi, Justin DeLeon, Brock Riker, Ian Langford. These are all players that were very highly regarded coming out of high school when they came to Texas State, and they've been waiting. Some of them have been waiting 2 seasons to get out there. So it'll be interesting to see them unleash some of these young guys. You also have the Jones College transfers, Alan Grimmy, Cam Schultz, who we talked about. Can imagine they'll get some playing time, bringing in some JUCO offensive linemen, big guys who are ready to go, ready to play. There's the TCU Arizona State transfer that got there really late in fall camp. Ezra Dotson Oyatade at center. With Chase Todd exhausting his eligibility, they're going to need a center. David Connor, it seemed like he could have been a center potentially for them, that Florida transfer, but he's back in the portal. Emeka Bebo's still there. His brother is in the portal. Who knows if they can convince Emeto to come back, but I imagine Emeto is looking for playing time. But Emeka is still with the Bobcats. So they'll be missing some starters. And as far as the bowl game, I say only two starters returning for the bowl game. It's just one, Alex Harkey, off to Oregon in the transfer portal. The other ones will be playing, but that's why I feel like at that right tackle spot, that's why I brought that up, with Sully Burns or Trenton Scott, see them in that bowl game, and even going into next year competing for that spot. Running back Ish Madi, I mean, what can you say? That's a huge hole to fill, either by committee or one really good player. It seems like it's going to have to be by committee for this team. But Lincoln Perry's coming back, great running back. Torrance Burgess is coming back. We saw him do some great things. Some fumble issues with Burgess, but man, is he a really great runner when he gets in some space. And then Greg Burrell, a bit of a bigger back coming in from UNLV. I like that start. I think that's a nice 1-2-3. This team definitely likes to use more than one running back. So it seems like they settle with around three. Even though we've heard GJ King talk about 5-7, like the Gus Malzahn lineage that he comes from, but really it seems like they seem to settle with three. So that'll be a good 1-2-3. They also have Cole Pryor, who they brought in from Reagan High School. Not a ton they need to do. Maybe one more at that running back spot to really solidify it. But not as pressing an issue as maybe some of the other positions. Tight end, with no Connor Fox, it'll be interesting to see who's going to take over that one. Looks like Titus Lyons can come back, and they've given him quite a bit of playing time. But I think Arvis Battle, who's coming in from Red Oak High School, I think he's got a great chance to be like a dark horse starter, a true freshman starter at that tight end spot. And really, that's based on a lot of how GJ Kinney talked about him and the type of athlete he saw, and how he was really looking to replicate a stud tight end in this offense, and how maybe Arvis Battle can be that. So that's really high praise. Although I love Titus Lyons, so I hope he gets some more playing time. He's got a lot of grit, great blocker out there, can catch some passes, and has been with this team a long time. So I can hope he gets more opportunity as well. I know they have another transfer at tight end that I'm missing. There's also Jake Simpson, who's the freshman from Independence High School. So they've got some options at that tight end spot. Yeah, but really, I mean, it's focusing on they've got some interior D line, some DB, wide receiver, offensive line. And these are some of the positions that they're still focusing on. They're still trying to add more players in. But I don't know. I think mapping it out, it's not as woe is me as it seems. Now, obviously, losing the core of the last 2 years of these two winning teams, of these bowl teams over the last 2 years isn't great. And who knows what that has in line for Texas State, if there might be some sort of a regression as they develop some of these younger players that are coming along, or finally give these players an opportunity to play that don't have a ton of experience, that have been waiting for a while, what that means, or if these young guys come on and they're able to splash on the scene and really prove that it's a rinse and repeat, a plug and go with this system, this scheme that Kenny and these guys have developed. It'll be really interesting to see. All I know, it'll be completely different personnel wise. From, I don't know, schematically wise, we'll see what they decide to do with offensive coordinator, what all this means. I do know from a personnel standpoint, it's going to be different, completely different. They're not going to have the old reliables, the Joey Hoberts, the Ish Mahdi's, these guys, Nash Jones, Tavian Coleman, Terry Webb. That's twice I did that to those two in one episode. My apologies to Tavian Coleman and Terry Webb. But who's gonna? You don't have these guys that they were able to lean on for the last 2 seasons. That they're now gone, and some younger guys are gonna have to step up. Some younger guys and some new guys are gonna have to step up. So it'll be real. 2025 is gonna be a real interesting year for this program, for GJ Kinney's tenure at Texas State. It's not a they have to set the world on fire and they need to go win 10 games. But I feel like if they can lose these core players like they've lost and still come out and have a winning record next year, that's going to say a lot about their system that they have in place, that they're able to bring in there. And I've been confident that they'd go in the portal and they'd go get some really good players. And it's just 7 so far. Imagine it's going to be quite a bit more. They're not quite a bit. I don't mean to make it sound like they're going to have 10 more. Could be, yeah, it could be 5 to 10 more. I could imagine it being somewhere. It could be a handful. It could be two handfuls more of players they're going to bring in. But they're really good at finding players in the portal and getting them in to Texas State. The Ben Bell situation, that one is such a head scratcher even still for me. I mean, even if we want to backtrack it a little bit to talk about the Ben Bell saga, um, it's hard for me to fault any of these guys who are just who they're trying to elevate their the platform that they're on so they can move on to the next level, or whether they're trying to maximize the short window of time that they can make money on their athletic abilities, so they want to move on and go make that money. It's hard for me to fault any of these players, but Ben Bell is that's one where he played the first 3 games, wasn't in that Sam Houston game. They ended up losing by 1 point. Probably could have used a player of Ben Bell's caliber in that close game. But didn't play that one, so it raised alarm bells for everybody, and everybody's assuming, oh, it's an injury. Then you hear the next day, I was hearing from sources that he's going to he's taking a red shirt and he's going to enter the transfer portal so he can go play somewhere bigger. So I reported that, but then you'd hear from the official word from coaches saying he's week to week. We don't know if it's an injury. We don't know if it's gonna need a red shirt. We're all in wait and see mode. And then but my sources still the whole time saying he's entering the transfer portal. And then when the transfer portal window opened on December 9th, checked with my people, they were like, yes. So I reported he's planning on announcing he's going to be in the portal, but then you'd hear from within the program they're so confident that he hasn't announced yet was how it was phrased, and that they're confident they can bring him back and everything. And that maybe he can even potentially play in the bowl game coming up, because that doesn't count towards the redshirt eligibility, playing in the postseason. But that there was even up until the day before he entered the transfer portal, there was confidence that he could play in that bowl game even. But then he enters the transfer portal the day after the window opened. And now he's got a lot of suitors elsewhere. So there was a lot of confusion going around. And then, all season, he was even in the games he wasn't playing, he was on the sideline wearing a Texas State jersey. He was remained around the team. Who knows what was happening inside that locker room, what he was saying, if he was saying one thing to coaches, another thing to other people. Who knows? I can't say for sure. But that was a real confusing situation. But the way it shakes out is he gets another year of eligibility. This would have been his last one. He gets another year of eligibility. He gets to go make a lot of money at another school, and it will be a significant amount of money, because with the thousands and thousands of players in the transfer portal, I say thousands, probably like in the 2000s. It's in the 2000s. I know that. I don't know the exact number. He's the number 4 rated recruit. That's a pretty high price tag that he's gonna get. I mean, even I don't know if I'm totally guessing. Like On3 likes to do transfer portal, how much this player is worth, the transfer worth, and they're kind of just, they're guessing. So I'll do a guess on like 300, 500K he could pull, being the number 4 transfer in the portal. So, I mean, it's just, it's understandable though when fans feel used. He took NIL money at Texas State to just play 4 games, and whether he injured or not, you can't really say the intent. If this player, how injured he truly was to not be able to play in these games, but to just play 4 games and almost, I understand why some people feel used by the whole situation. I can imagine there's people inside the program that feel used. I know there's some players that didn't love it, the whole situation. So that one was a bit of a head scratcher. Don't exactly know what happened or what Ben Bell was doing, but I do know Ben Bell he's gonna go to a pretty big school. Hopefully he gets some NIL. Then he can elevate his life a little bit. And, I know it's a pretty big disappointment for a lot of Texas State fans, but it's one that we've known since September. If you've been listening to the pod, we've been saying since September that's what the situation was, and that's what was going to happen. But and that's the way it is. The transfer portal, Wild West, we were saying, but even the Wild West was tamed. It'll take reform. It'll take a lot of people in suits sitting around at a table and figuring out how do we lock this whole thing in. I think it's really going to start with a collective bargaining agreement between the schools and the players, where they get a cut of the TV money that the schools get. And I think that'll give a little bit, because right now it was always the control was all in the schools over the players. They had the power. Now it was too much power for the schools. Now it's too much power for the players. There's got to be a balance. Everybody's got to come to a compromise. It's really nice for players right now. Some of them are getting really paid, but there needs to be it needs to stabilize, or else it's going to be chaos every few months. Someone who covers the sport, it's a lot of fun. All the changes, moving pieces, lots to talk about, lots of content. But for the game itself, it needs to be stabilized. It needs to be less chaotic, so that you don't have some of these bowl games. Even some of the playoff games, you saw like Penn State's backup quarterback. He had to make a decision to get in there within that transfer portal window. So he went into the transfer portal and is missing out on playoffs. But it'll stabilize. It's a lot of change. It's crazy because there wasn't much change for 100 years, and now it's every year. It's every week. There's so much change going on in this sport. It's a ton to keep up with, but a lot of fun to keep up with. A lot of fun to follow and see where everything is going to go. See if you can read the tea leaves with it all. But all in all, the Bobcats, they'll add more players. And I think it'll make it more palatable. Some of these players entering the portal. It is more just from some of these departing players, what they've done for this program the last 2 years, to see them now leave. That's the part where it is. You can feel it from fans, where it is emotional. It's like, oh man, these were players that finally gave this fan base some moments to cheer for. After being so downtrodden for so long, the last 2 years, there's been a lot of cheers. And that was a bit of a roller coaster this year. It was a roller coaster the first year as well. And the roller coaster is a lot more fun than the car that won't go at all. It's just stuck on the tracks. Rather, at least the roller coaster's moving, as opposed to a 2-10 season. That's just, there's nothing going on. So to see these players that finally brought some joy to this program, they're now leaving. It is emotional to see them gone, even if it was short, just 2 years. But it was two important years for this place. So I can imagine most people listening to this are going to be rooting for Ish Mahdi at Arizona. How could you not? I understand if not Ben Bell. Because you could really say, really he quit on the team. Played 4 games. He played the first 3, intentionally came back 2 games later to play one last one for the red shirt. So I kind of understand if you feel a certain way there. Although I'm still going to root for him on my end. I'm going to root for him. Get some money, go to the NFL, But they'll, who knows? Maybe the next Ish Mahdi is coming in. The next Ben Bell, the next Joey Hobart, the next of all these guys that have been waiting their time to play. We're gonna see it in 2025. A new team for the GJ Kinney era. Oh, lots of fun coming up, and we've also got a bowl game coming up, so we'll be talking plenty about that bowl game as well. Like I said, we'll do another episode later this week talking about that bowl game. What's going to happen? Who's going to play in it? What to expect from UNT? What to expect from Texas State? Oh, but this episode was brought to you by TGC LLC, the GalindoCollective.com. That's TGC LLC, a team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC and on Instagram and Facebook, The Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy, Rick Galindo, He's been one of our longest sponsors, been with us all through last season, all through this season. He's getting us to the bowl game coming up this year. Can't thank Rick Galindo and TGC LLC enough. Go check them out, thegalindocollective.com, Galindo, galindocollective.com. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/winnoworgetbent. Reese Largent, our great intern, doing great stuff on there. Great coverage for recruiting. Check out our merch site, WNOGB.com. Check me out here with my Mad Cat shirt on. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/winnoworgetbent. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. You can see me wearing the sweet Mad Cat shirt. Check us out on Twitter at WhenNowOrGetBent, on Instagram at WNOGB. Guess I should say Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Like, subscribe, comment on all our stuff. Apple, Spotify, get on there, leave some ratings, subscribe on those platforms. Do what you got to do to help us grow. You guys have been doing a terrific job with that. We've seen a terrific growth this 2024 year, and I can't thank y'all enough for that. Also got to thank TGC LLC one more time for getting us to the bowl game. First Lockhart National Bank, McNabb & Co. and Austin Patchmaster. Shout out to the Wizard, Zachary Webb, always making this podcast look awesome. One more shout out to Reese Largent, always working hard. And of course, you sickos out there, thanks for always tuning in, supporting us, helping us grow, keeping this thing going. Without you, this is nothing. All of it is nothing without you. We'd be shouting out into the void. So thank all of you. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas out there. We're a couple days. We're on the eve of Christmas. So very Merry Christmas. I hope you're surrounded by family. I hope you're filled with joy, maybe some filled with joy and eggnog, spiked eggnog, if you will, if you're about that life. Not everyone is, but it's a good time, that's for sure. But Merry Christmas to everybody out there, to all you sickos out there tuning in. Merry Christmas to everybody except UTSA. That's right. They're playing their bowl game right now, and last I saw, they were up. So much for a hate watch this time. But Merry Christmas, everybody. Win now or get bent.